So, David, I want to start by talking about Mark Carney for a change. And I want you to hear part of the ad now put together by the Conservatives, clearly going after him. Take a listen to this.
Trump wants our jobs.
We're going to take other countries' jobs.
And Mark Carney is just the man to help him. Trudeau and Carney sold out Canada with job-killing taxes that push jobs south. He opposed Canadian pipelines while profiting off U.S. coal. Carney even moved his company's headquarters to New York, just as Trump wanted.
You're sneaky.
Carbon tax Carney. If Carney wins, Canada loses.
Okay. David, give me your reaction to that, would you?
My reaction is, I'm thinking about the old sports adage, the most difficult thing in sports, and we saw it during the last Super Bowl, is at halftime trailing, and you have to change your strategy that has been working for the last season or two. And that's what happened with the Chiefs. It's the hardest thing in sports. And the analogy here is that Pierre Poilievre, because if you listen to the ad, they're still talking about the carbon tax. Yeah. And I get why they're going negative, but the thing is that it's not about Carney. It's about the Canadian people that have moved on from the carbon tax and the Trudeau regime. Because not only is the polling, both in Quebec and the rest of the country, showing the Liberals clearly now ticking up, and would tick up even higher with Mark Carney as their leader. And remember, March 9th is only 20 days away. So if everything stays on course for Mark Carney, he is the Prime Minister of Canada in 20 days. And the Conservatives are completely destabilized and seemingly not able to find a new game plan. Yesterday's big rally in Ottawa, was it Saturday?
Yep.
In Ottawa, where you saw Pierre Poilievre trying to show himself as Captain Canada. And actually, there were instructions. You had to wear red and white. You couldn't wear blue. You couldn't wear conservative blue. And you have to play the whole patriotic card. It's simply not working. And an interesting example of this, if I may, Aaron, is we're not talking a lot about this, but as you probably know, there's actually a provincial election campaign going on right now in Ontario. The provincial election, Doug Ford has called an election for February 27th. They start voting in Ontario on the 20th. And the provincial Liberals, who, contrarily to the Quebec Liberals, in Ontario, the Ontario Liberals are basically the provincial home office for the federal Liberals.
Right.
I mean, they're the same party. And for the last two provincial elections in Ontario, going back to Kathleen Wynne, the Liberals were running third and in real danger of extinction in Ontario. Well, not only are they running second right now, but they're running a very strong second at over 30%. Now, Doug Ford, unless something completely unforeseen happens, is going to win. But I'm just telling you, the federal election is going to turn on what? Quebec and Ontario, as usual. Well, Quebec right now, Mark Carney and whatever his French is, something's working because right now the Liberals are polling at around 31% in Quebec and competitive with the Bloc, which is still at 34. And in Ontario, if the provincial Liberals are doing as well as they are right now, that means that you can see a Mark Carney-led federal Liberal Party working. And remember, with Poilievre, taking out all these ads right now, trying to stem the tide, right now, the federal Liberals are keeping their powder completely dry. Because I'm wondering, the minute the bell rings, let's say Mark Carney calls an election March 10th and goes out here we go with all the stories that we haven't heard in a while about the links between the federal conservatives and the MAGA movement in the U.S. I'm seeing ads. Imagine I could see an ad, Aaron, about how Pierre Poilievre and the senior conservative MPs were all happy and giddy at the beginning of the Ottawa occupation a few years ago. And so the idea here is that right now the conservatives are, I think, in panic mode. They don't know how to change the strategy that's worked so well and turn it around. Because right now the numbers, the data shows that Canadians, not only Canadians are willing to take a look at Carney, but Canadians' top issues, number one, is everything having to do with the economy and tariffs.
Right.
And number two, Donald Trump. Those are the two issues. It's not about the carbon tax anymore.
You know, it's funny how, although you're right, in that ad, it does bring up, carbon tax, Carney. I guess they like the alliteration. But I would just ask the question as well. So we heard, so obviously the Conservatives have set their sights on Mark Carney. It seems pretty obvious he's going to end up winning. I know there's debates, of course. That can change people's opinion. We know that as well. What about this idea, and I heard someone bring this up at least a couple of times, this idea that, if you're going to paint Carney that way as a Conservative, let's remember Stephen Harper wanted to appoint him as his finance minister.
Exactly, and I would add to that, during the two big interviews, one he did on Radio Canada and one on CBC yesterday, where he talked about the fact that Stephen Harper actually wanted to name him finance minister in 2012. First of all, that helps him with the Red Tories, with a lot of these liberals, and that's what happened to Justin Trudeau and his plummeting polls, is that center-left and center-right liberals in Ontario and Quebec mainly, but also in BC and Atlantic Canada, deserted the federal Liberal Party because they felt Justin Trudeau went way too far left. And by saying that yesterday, what Mark Carney did is say, and he said it as much. He said, economically speaking, I'm much more to the center than Justin Trudeau. And that's reassuring.
Sure.
That when you're running, if all the Liberals come back, nationally right now in the polling, Aaron, the Liberals are hovering around 30%. Well, remember, because of vote distribution and the efficiency of the Liberal vote, they won the last two elections with 33% nationally. They're not that far off anymore. And so that's one thing. The other thing that's very interesting is that Mark Carney yesterday in these interviews said also, I would sit down and negotiate a new deal with Donald Trump. He seemed very prime ministerial. He seemed like a leader. He's talking about, it wasn't slogans and huffing and puffing, which Pierre Poilievre can't seem to get away from. It was about, we're going to sit down, we're going to renegotiate the trade deal, we're going to get out of this crisis. And that will make sense. It's reassuring. That's what leadership is. So I think Mark Carney is scoring a lot of points, and Pierre Poilievre and company are still scrambling to find an answer.
Just as a final point, and I've heard this brought up as well, this kind of leaving the NDP out in the cold, right?
Completely.
Some of these poll numbers, yes, are taken away from the Conservatives, but it's really the NDP suffering at the end of the day. You kind of wonder what kind of future they have at the end of all this.
Well, they don't. Let's face it, right now, and look everywhere with the left. Just the left in general. Look at Quebec Solidaire here in Quebec. It's the same thing, and a lot of NDP voters are going to the Liberals. What Justin Trudeau was trying to do by going super ultra-left, and that wasn't working, it's actually working because when NDP, urban NDP voters are running scared, they run towards the Liberals. And so right now, the left policy, what does the left say? Well, more bigger government, more taxes. Hey, buddy, we're done with taxes. Yeah. Thank you. And so they don't have an answer either. And actually, the polling is showing that a lot of the NDP is bleeding towards the Liberal.
Well, the one thing it won't be is boring because this race has changed an awful lot literally in about a month. No one saw this coming a month ago.
Donald Trump effect. Remember, we talked about this over the last year. Donald Trump has transformed the Canadian political landscape completely.
Unwillingly, but he's done it. David Heurtel, David, thank you.